telling you right now, Halo would be the perfect opera show. It would probably bore you to death, but at least it would be something we know, right? Because opera's so boring. All Halo would be for an opera would be oh, 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 oh. Yeah, it would probably put your ass to sleep, but so Halo Infinite is out now on Xbox Series X and Xbox One. I played it on Xbox One. It is the 6th installment in the main Halo saga. I think it's like the 8th mainline Halo game. I don't know, it's Halo 6. Halo Infinite sees Master Chief going up against the Banished and the Harbinger after the events of Halo 5 Guardians. And now he has to investigate this new Halo ring called Zeta Halo. It is crumbling and breaking apart, and he has to investigate why, and he comes across this new artificial intelligence called the Weapon, and he also teams up with this downed Pelican pilot called Echo 216. And they all converge to investigate the Banished. Now you have to take on new enemies that I guess are the Covenant, but they're also the Banished. I don't really remember the story of the first Halo. I should have probably played Halo 1 through 5 before I played Halo Infinite. So now I'm going to look to actually dive back into Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 4. I might skip Halo 5 because if you ask me, Halo 5 is one of the most disappointing video games I have ever played. False marketing all over the place. So I was actually skeptical about playing Halo Infinite, and the gameplay that they showed off when they first announced the Xbox Series X didn't do this game any favors. The graphics looked like they had like some graphical limitation, like it looked like N64 style stuff. Luckily, they pushed the release date of the game back to this year instead of last year, gave them more time to develop the graphics, and even on Xbox One, because I don't have a Series X yet, but even on Xbox One, the graphics were astounding. This world, this Halo world, Zeta Halo, looks fucking amazing. Every time you play a Halo game and you have to go to one of the Halo rings, like the one in a gajillion Halo rings, I feel like I'm on Earth, just futuristic areas of Earth, and I look down, I'm like, oh shit, I'm in space. The actual story of Halo Infinite was satisfactory and a really, really great return to form for the series after the disappointment that Halo 5 was. For the entire game, you play as Master Chief. You don't play as anybody else in this game, and they did a really good job earlier in the series of having you switch between Master Chief and Arbiter, because you played as Arbiter for like a couple of levels, I think, in Halo 2, and I think in Halo 3 you did it, but Halo 5, the entire game, you were playing as Spartan Locke, and you had like 2 levels where you played as Master Chief. So I was happy to see that Master Chief was at the center of the story, and he's got a really strong emotional connection to 3 things here. It's a very human story for Master Chief, and that was something that really surprised me as I was playing, and actually kept me invested into playing, because I'm going to be quite honest with you guys, playing video games lately, I feel like I've been getting out of playing video games. I played the Guardians of the Galaxy game, which I thought was really good. I didn't review it, but I thought that that was really good, and that kind of got me back into the game sphere a little bit. Then I played the Dark Pictures anthology House of Ashes. Really enjoyed that. That's the best one of that series. Still not a perfect series. I had plans to review that too, just time. Then I was like, you know what, let me deep dive into Halo. Because I've been a fan of Halo, even though I don't really remember the story. I don't know, when it comes to games, like, because games, it's just spread out through days. Movies, it's 2 hours, and I feel like I can retain information better in movies than I can in games. Because in games, it's like, okay, I learned about that a couple days ago when I played. What is that again? Yeah, remembering the events of the past 5 Halo games, except for Halo 5, because that's the one that I remember, was the first game in the series to be rated T, but was also the game where you played more as Spartan Locke than you did as Master Chief. Yeah, I remember that shit. But yeah, no, the emotional core was what brought me back to playing this game, because Master Chief really has an emotional core with 3 characters in this game. He's got Echo 216, he's got his new artificial intelligence, the Weapon, and then he also has memories about about Cortana, because Cortana, from what I believe, she became a main antagonist. I'm not sure if that was Halo 4 or Halo 5. I can't really remember. But that was really a big reason why I wanted to keep playing Halo Infinite. I wanted to see the bond between these characters and Master Chief. And not only that, but the gameplay is everything you expect from a Halo game, but while feeling fresh and new. You get this new like grappling hook that you can get from place to place. It's really helpful. If you have to get to like the other side of the map, but you don't have fast travel unlocked, and I'll talk more about fast travel in a minute, you can just start grappling everywhere, especially if there's no vehicles around like warthogs or mongooses. Oh man, I miss the days of Halo 3 multiplayer having mongoose chases. It was awesome. But yeah, you can use that grappling hook. There's also this thing called a drop wall where it's like a shield, so for a brief amount of time, you throw down the drop wall in front of you, and then if enemies start shooting at you, they shoot the drop wall. So you don't actually have damage inflicted on you. That's really interesting. Different kinds of grenades, like shock grenades, are really interesting. I mean, the plasma grenades and the frag grenades return. You have like shock grenades that actually really help because they stun the enemies and they electrocute them. Like the grenades are essentially Emperor Palpatine's lightning, and they stun them, and you're able to get a good amount of shots in on them. All these new gadgets and gear that you get from Master Chief in this game actually relied more on a little bit of strategy, especially when it came to areas that were really populated with enemies, and when it came to the big brutes that had like the fucking gravity hammers and the brute chieftains, my holy shit. Play this game on the easiest difficulty, because if you're like me, well, I mean, if you're strategic, you could probably play it on harder difficulties, but if you're like me in first-person shooter games, because honestly, this is like me with Call of Duty 2, or any first-person shooter game. Rainbow Six Vegas, I was like this. Any James Bond game, I'm like this. But like in any first-person shooter game, I just go out, run and gun, and try and kill everybody, and I'll be like, I don't want to use my gadgets. Get the assault rifle. That's no nope. And I fucking died. And then I keep dying and dying and dying. And I'm like, okay, now I realize that I have to be strategic. So even on harder difficulties, it does get a little bit difficult. I played it on normal, and I was like, man, maybe it's just me because I am just going out and running and gunning. But it's like, yeah, you have to be a little bit more strategic. You actually have to use those gadgets that Master Chief is given in this game to your advantage. They help you out so well, and especially when it comes to the boss battles. The boss battles in this game are actually really interesting because the boss battles in this game offer a variety. They offer different strategic approaches. Sometimes your gadgets won't work. Sometimes you have to do something else. Maybe sometimes you have to use a specific weapon to take down a specific boss, and that's how you beat the boss. I'll tell you what, when you get towards the end of the game, make sure you have the Sentinel beam on you and all the ammo for the Sentinel beam that you can have, because that Sentinel beam helps you a lot. It just vaporizes and incinerates enemies. It's awesome. But when there's rooms with like 4 elites, 2 Chief Brutons, and a bunch of grunts, it can make for a little bit of a challenging time. And I was actually really surprised to see that even after I was running and gunning, and I had to become a bit more strategic as to how I was going to get across this room and defeat all the enemies, because there's objectives that you have in certain rooms where you can't actually do the objectives until you defeat all the enemies in a certain area. I was actually surprised that even with how strategic I was being, how difficult and challenging the game actually was, and I appreciate that. Yeah, give me a challenge. Don't make it easy on me. Trying to hide and get my shields back up to full strength was something of a challenge at times, and I was gritting my teeth trying to get those shields back up. You know, the grunts, I think, are the main criticism of the enemies with the Halo games, because they're kind of like the droids in the Star Wars prequel movies where you can just laugh at them, but they become more like the droids too, because they've actually started to get personalities. Like, I love the grunts in this game. Like, if you get killed and a grunt is near you, or if a grunt just happens to kill you because they actually light up plasma grenades and they throw them at you, or they hold them in their hands as like almost as if like they're suicide bombers, and they hit you and you die, they'll be like, holy crap, I did it! I killed Master Chief! That's awesome. There is a big gameplay change though, and it's not throughout the entire game, but when you are on Zeta Halo, most of the time you are out in the open, like when you're not in like different structures and buildings on Zeta Halo. to get to places, you can actually do some side quests if you want. I mean, you can continue on with the main story too. It's not one of those games, thank God, where it's like, clear out this certain area and this amount of enemies to proceed to the next level. Thank God. I hate when games do that. Just let me do the main story. So luckily, Halo Infinite isn't one of those games, but it's interesting because it's semi-open world, so when you're actually on the surface of Zeta Halo, you can actually fast travel to different points as long as you clear out the enemies in that point, because then it becomes UNSC, drop zone, and troops come in, and you can actually pick like your vehicles and your weapons that you want moving forward once you clear it out. So you can like fast travel from point to point, you can do side missions. There are certain times where if you start a mission on Zeta Halo, it goes right into the next mission, so you might not be able to do side missions all at the same time. I think if you go from mission 9 to 10 and then for the rest of the game, it's all very linear, but like everything in between, like you can actually take your time in this game if you want to do side missions and gain a little bit more notoriety as Master Chief, you can. And that was something that was a welcome sight and something different that the Halo series hasn't done before. I didn't personally do it myself, but I remember I actually did get caught up in one like crazy war with trying to clear out one of those areas, and I think I did it just because using a walkthrough, which is essentially cheating, but I was just looking at like strategy guides and it was like, yeah, you should use these certain weapons on certain missions, so that's why I cleared out like a couple of them. But mostly I just went for the main story, and the main story is really good. I think this is actually, out of these last 3 Halo games, from what I remember, this is the best story out of Halo 4, Halo 5. I mean, nothing is going to compare to the original Halo trilogy, but we're in the Reclaimer saga now, and having to deal with the Banished, and I don't know, somebody correct me in the comments, I guess the Covenant became the Banished, and now they have these new leaders, Atriox and Escharum. That guy was hard to beat. I was just learning more about what the actual story was and where we picked up from and how the story is going to progress into possibly the next Halo game. That brought me back to the emotional core of the story, the actual story itself, the gameplay, and the world made me coming back for more for Halo. It gave me a strong desire and a drive to complete this game, because this could have easily have been a game where I could have left it for days upon end without playing, but no, I tried to play almost every day and get as far as I could almost every day. And there were a couple days where I didn't play here and there because it was just late at night after I got home from work and I was like, I'm tired, I don't want to play Halo. I took the time to actually complete the story, and now playing a few games in a row, especially Halo, this is the one that I think is going to get me back into playing games, because I forgot how much I like playing games. And when you have really solid stories and characters and gameplay like this, it's gonna bring me back in. You're gonna rope me into wanting to play games again, and I think I'm in that mindset now. When you meet Echo 216, I can immediately see people being like, well, fuck, this guy is the most annoying person on the planet. And for a while he is, until he actually sides with you and something happens to him later on in the game. Minor spoilers here, he gets captured by the Banished and Escharum and you have to go and rescue him, and he's just like, you know what, Chief, I'm gonna help you. I'm like, the moment that happens, I'm like, I like this guy. He's no longer annoying. He understands what's happening, and you understand where he's coming from, because they actually do, there's a brief backstory with him in the opening cutscene of the game, and it's just kind of like, oh shit, like, I get it. Like, I get why he's annoying. He should be annoying. But that's the thing. Echo 216 weapon should be hindrances on this game. And they're not. As I've said, they form a strong bond with Master Chief that gives Master Chief an even more emotional core than I think he's ever had. And it feels like it's just a huge makeup for Halo 5. It was almost as if 343 Industries was like, yeah, we're sorry we made Halo 5. Here's the actual Halo 5. You want to play as Master Chief again? Here you go. The entire game is Master Chief. If I have one issue with Halo Infinite, I guess it's that some of the objectives are repetitive. It's mostly just going through a bunch of rooms, taking out enemies, and putting the weapon into this thing that she can hack so that she can open doors, or she can do something that leads to a cutscene that leads to more story exposition. That got a little bit repetitive after a while, but that's not a huge hindrance on the game. I mean, Halo has been like that from the beginning, but this time where it was just, here's this control panel in the middle of the room, but take out these enemies, it got a little bit annoying, but it was never annoying to the point where I wanted to stop playing. If I started to run and gun and I had to get strategic and I kept dying on both instances where I was running and gunning and dying when I had to get strategic, I guess trying to incorporate new strategies in these areas was more interesting than trying to get to the middle of the room to this control panel that the weapon could hack or they had to plug her into. And, you know, that actually kind of became an afterthought, even if it is a bit repetitive. I was just more focused on how to get there, I guess. I was really surprised with Halo Infinite and just how much fun I had with this game. I really didn't think Halo could go up after the disappointment that was Halo 5, and when we saw the gameplay reveal for when they revealed the Xbox Series X and what games they were releasing, it looked like it had graphical limitations and it looked like the laughingstock of the gaming industry. But no, Halo bounced back, and it bounced back big. A huge return to form for the series. I'm going to give Halo Infinite a 9.5 out of 10. Would have been a perfect score if it wasn't for that slight repetition with the mission objectives, but again, strategy and the challenge take a little bit of precedence over it, but it is something that I noticed, even though it wasn't to the point of annoyance. So have you guys played Halo Infinite? What is your favorite Halo game? I still think Halo 1 is my favorite. It's crazy that we haven't really had a bad Halo game except for Halo 5. I mean, even then that wasn't bad. Like, the gameplay's still really great. It's just the actual story and who you play as in that game was just disappointing. But yeah, I mean, what is your favorite Halo game? Did you like Halo 5? And what did you think of Halo Infinite? Drop me some feedback in the comment section below. Stay tuned very soon for reviews of The Matrix Resurrections, Hawkeye. I have watched Loki, if people are asking. I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous video. I watched it. I binged it all in one day. It was a great show. Best Marvel MCU show so far on Disney+. Book of Boba Fett's coming out very soon. I think that's it for reviews. Quick review on the Guardians of the Galaxy game. Felt like I was playing Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Great game. Really surprisingly longer than I thought. Does get a bit repetitive in terms of its combat, but just the banter between all the Guardians of the Galaxy was awesome, and I loved its original story. It was a really weird story. So that's my brief thoughts on that. Dark Pictures Anthology, House of Ashes, best in the series. Still a lot of room for improvement. The camera angles in that game are atrocious still. They also need to work on their writing for their characters, because none of the characters in those games I like. But that's definitely the best one. And then I got top 10 lists coming, and then that's the end of the year. If I see Nightmare Alley, I'm probably not gonna review it. I think it's too late at this point. I did see West Side Story, liked it, had some issues, but yeah, for the most part, I thought it was solid, and mostly because of that Spielberg. This has really just turned into a compilation of reviews, but I think that's all. I think I can wrap it up now. Just some quick thoughts on some things I played or saw that I wanted you guys to know. If you were wondering, oh, where was that? Yeah, that's it. Still have not beat Resident Evil Village. I gotta put that in my PS5. That might be my next game, so I'm not even gonna review that. But you guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.